The rain on Kepler Outpost tasted like rust. Not literally, of course. But when it splashed against the cracked metal roofs and pooled in the broken gutters, the smell of oxidized iron filled the air. It was the scent of a place forgotten by the galaxy. Jonas Hale had lived there long enough that he barely noticed it anymore. The outpost sat on the edge of explored space, a dying mining station orbiting a dim orange star. Once, thousands of workers had lived there, extracting rare minerals from nearby asteroids. But when the richer veins were discovered elsewhere, the corporations packed up and left. Only a few stubborn souls remained. Jonas was one of them. He sat alone at a small metal table outside the outpost's only functioning food stall. The lights flickered above him, humming softly. In front of him sat a dented tray containing his dinner, a single ration loaf, a small tin of protein paste, and a half cup of recycled water. It wasn't much. Actually, it was everything he had left. Jonas picked up the ration loaf and turned it in his hands. Hard as a brick, bland as dust. He chuckled to himself. 5 years in the Galactic Marines, he muttered, and this is still the worst food I've ever seen. The Marines were long behind him now. After the war in the Perseus Belt ended, Jonas had taken the first civilian transport he could find. No parades. No medals. Just distance. Distance from memories. Distance from ghosts. He tore off a piece of the ration loaf and dipped it into the protein paste. Just as he lifted it toward his mouth, a shadow fell across the table. Jonas looked up. A woman stood there. At least she looked like a woman. Her cloak was dark and worn, its hood pulled low over her face. Beneath it, strands of silver-white hair slipped into the dim light. Her skin had a faint iridescent sheen, almost like pearl. Alien. Jonas had seen enough species during the war to recognize one immediately, though he couldn't place which. She looked thin, exhausted, and hungry. "Is this seat taken?" she asked softly. Her voice carried a strange musical quality, as if every word had been carefully tuned. Jonas glanced at the empty chairs around the stall. "Not exactly crowded tonight," he said. She sat down across from him. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Then Jonas noticed the way her eyes kept drifting toward the tray. The ration loaf. The protein paste. Her gaze wasn't greedy. Just tired. The kind of tired that came from not eating for too long. Jonas sighed quietly. He broke the ration loaf in half. Then he pushed one piece across the table. "Here," he said. The alien woman looked up, surprised. "I cannot take your food." "Sure you can," Jonas replied. "Watch." He nudged the bread closer. Her eyes studied him carefully. "You do not know me," she said. "True. You do not know my species." "Nope. You do not know if I am dangerous." Jonas shrugged. "Lady, if you were dangerous, you wouldn't be staring at ration bread like it's treasure." For a moment, she said nothing. Then, slowly, she reached forward and accepted the food. "Thank you," she said quietly. She ate with careful, delicate movements, as if trying not to appear desperate. But Jonas noticed how quickly the ration disappeared. When she finished, she looked almost embarrassed. "That was the first meal I've had in 3 days." Jonas whistled softly. 3 days? That's rough. He slid the protein paste toward her too. "You might as well take that." Her eyes widened. "That is your entire meal?" "Yeah," Jonas said casually. "But I've skipped dinner before." "Why would you do this for a stranger?" Jonas leaned back in his chair. The rain tapped gently against the metal roof above them. "Because once," he said slowly, "I was stranded on a battlefield with a busted leg and no supplies." She listened silently. "An alien medic found me," Jonas continued. "Different species. Different side of the war. Should have left me there. But they didn't." Jonas smiled faintly. They share their rations. Saved my life. The woman's eyes softened. So tonight, Jonas said. I guess I'm just paying back a debt. She finished the protein paste quietly. When she set the tin down, she looked stronger somehow, less fragile. Your kindness is unusual, she said. Jonas snorted. Trust me, I'm not that nice. But the woman didn't respond. Instead, she watched him closely, as if studying something important. Finally, she stood. I must go, she said. Jonas nodded. Safe travels. She hesitated. Then she asked one final question. If you knew who I truly was, would you still have shared your meal? Jonas shrugged. Probably. She tilted her head. Why? Jonas grinned. Because hungry people should eat. For the first time, she smiled. It was small, but strangely powerful. Then perhaps, she said softly, the galaxy still has hope. And with that, she disappeared into the rain. 3 weeks later, the sky above Kepler Outpost exploded with light. Jonas had been repairing a broken cargo drone when the alarms began blaring across the station. He looked up and nearly dropped his wrench. Ships. Dozens of them. No, hundreds. Massive vessels filled the sky, their hulls gleaming like silver mountains. Jonas recognized the designs immediately. Imperial warships. Not just any empire. The Aurelian Dominion. The most powerful civilization in the known galaxy. Their fleets didn't visit forgotten mining stations. Unless something was very wrong. The outpost fell into chaos. People ran through the corridors shouting. Docking clamps thundered into place as enormous cruisers locked onto the station. Jonas wiped grease from his hands. Well, he muttered, this can't be good. Moments later, armored soldiers flooded the station. Tall figures in radiant white armor. Aurelian royal guard. Jonas raised his hands instinctively. Relax, he said. Just a mechanic. One of the guards stepped forward. We're searching for a human named Jonas Hale. Jonas blinked. That would be me. The guards exchanged looks. Then, unexpectedly, they bowed. Please come with us. Jonas stared. Why? You have been summoned. By who? The guard hesitated. Then he said the words that froze the entire corridor. By the Sovereign. The flagship was larger than the entire mining station. Jonas walked through corridors of polished crystal and glowing silver metal. Every soldier they passed saluted. Not him, but the escort surrounding him. Eventually they reached massive golden doors. The guard stopped. The Sovereign awaits. The doors opened. Jonas stepped inside. The throne room stretched like a cathedral. Thousands of lights glittered along the ceiling like stars. And at the center of the chamber stood a single figure, a woman, wearing a crown of living crystal, silver hair, pearl-like skin. Jonas stopped walking. You've got to be kidding me. She smiled. The same quiet smile from the food stall. Hello again, Jonas Hale. Jonas ran a hand through his hair. You're the sovereign of the Aurelian Dominion? Yes. Which means I rule most of the galaxy, she finished gently. Jonas stared at her. Then he laughed. You're telling me the hungry traveler I fed was secretly the most powerful person alive. She stepped down from the throne. Correct. Jonas shook his head. Figures. She studied him carefully. You do not seem impressed. Lady, 3 weeks ago you were eating ration bread with me under a leaking roof. She laughed softly. That was an unusual evening. Jonas folded his arms. So why am I here? The Sovereign's expression became serious. Because you passed a test. A test. Yes. She walked slowly around him. Across the galaxy, I sometimes travel in secret, she explained. Disguised. Observing. Why? To understand the civilizations I rule. She stopped in front of him. Most people ignored me. Some refused to help. Others demanded payment. Jonas raised an eyebrow. And me? You gave away your last meal. The room fell silent. That, she said quietly, is the kind of person the galaxy needs. Jonas scratched the back of his neck. Look, I appreciate the compliment, but I'm just a mechanic. No, she said gently. You are a human. Jonas frowned. And that means something? The sovereign smiled slightly. It means everything. She gestured to the massive window behind the throne. Outside, the fleet glowed against the stars. Humanity is still young among the stars, she said. But in every conflict, every crisis, humans do something remarkable. What? They help. Jonas shrugged. Seems normal. It is not. She looked directly into his eyes. And that is why I want you to work for me. Jonas blinked. Work for you. As my advisor. Jonas laughed out loud. Lady, I barely passed high school. I do not need a scholar, she said. I need someone who understands compassion. He hesitated. The offer sounded insane, but also important. Jonas looked out at the endless fleet. Let me get this straight, he said. You're offering a broke mechanic from a dying mining station a job helping rule the galaxy. Yes. All because I share dinner. Yes. Jonas sighed. Well, he said slowly, I guess that's the weirdest job interview I've ever had. The sovereign smiled again. So, will you accept? Jonas thought about the empty outpost, the lonely years, the pointless repairs. Then he looked back at her. All right, he said. I'll give it a shot. The sovereign turned toward the assembled guards. Her voice echoed through the chamber. Let it be known. Jonas Hale of Earth is now under the protection of the Aurelian throne. The guards saluted. Thousands of soldiers, all for a former mechanic. Jonas leaned closer to her and whispered, Just one question. Yes. Next time we meet, he said, grinning, can we skip the ration bread and get real food? The sovereign laughed. Agreed. And far beyond the forgotten mining station, a new story began spreading through the galaxy. The story of a human who shared his last meal and accidentally became the advisor to the ruler of the stars. A small act of kindness, with consequences large enough to change the galaxy.